It's always the feature window with a big picture sash in the center, flanked by casements or double hungs, and then they have like 12-inch shutters on the side.
Right.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, it's like a T-Rex. It's like, what's it going to do with those little things?
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Deputy Editor Matt Milham.
What's up?
Kylie Jacques, Design Editor.
Hello.
And Producer Jeff Rose.
Howdy.
Please email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts. Check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Wow, we have gotten some great feedback this week, I would say. Better than normal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way?
There was more of it.
Voluminous.
So we're still hearing about the viability of handyman businesses, which we first started talking about in episode 227.
Okay.
And this email comes from Valon. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I've listened to every episode and have learned a lot and a ton about roof venting. Keep up the great variety of episodes. I'm writing in response to the handyman discussion, episode 227. It is possible to make a decent amount of money having a handyman service as a standalone or part of a contracting business. I'm a home improvement contractor in Brooklyn, New York, and I have a handyman service as part of my company. Kitchens and baths are my main line of work, but I also do handyman work from furniture assembly to light, electrical, and plumbing. For me, it's easier to scale small jobs down to a handyman service where I don't have to write up a detailed contract. I have experience on the Handy platform. When they first launched in New York City, I was making about $4,000 a month off the platform before they got greedy. So to build my own service, I incorporated their 2-hour minimum model and raised the rates to a number that works for me. So for example, I charge $75 per hour for light, electrical, and plumbing. With my minimum, that's $150 for the job. So if I get hired to replace an outlet, which takes a few minutes, I still make enough profit to cover my time, travel, and other expenses. I also charge for material and added markup. I've built up a large number of handyman clients. Often these relationships lead to larger jobs and long-time relationships. Another benefit is that the handyman work makes good schedule fillers for slow times when people are not really remodeling or renovating, but still have things they need done around the house.
That's commendable. I love it.
I think he's lucky where he lives, though. That
was my first thought. I
Yeah.
mean, when you live in a borough,
Yeah.
in a city of 8 million people, and the borough has 2.5 million people, I mean, it's basically twice the population of Maine condensed into Central Park.
Yeah. So I think where
Volume.
it is, where you're at is depends on how viable your business can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that definitely helps a lot. But I mean, he's got some good ideas, though. I mean, the way he's...
Agreed.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just like the way he's billing things, and you know, that makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
For somebody who's going to try to make it work. You know,
I bet there's still a lot of people who balk, and I would like to know if he pre-qualifies them, before showing up at their door. Like, if you have to go and do an estimate, or to even spend a half an hour on the phone, your
that's the thing.
profitability goes way down.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
going to know what's wrong. That's
Yeah.
why they're calling you.
So
sometimes they'll go investigate and then not get the job. Is that what you're saying?
I would be worried about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Because people think stuff costs $10.
Well,
Even in New York City.
right. Well, there's Home Depot in New York City. They could probably walk and see what a receptacle costs and think that that's how much it's going to cost for somebody else to come put it in
79
their
cents.
house. Right.
So I would like to hear from others who have handyman components of their business or standalone handyman businesses. I think that's...
You're a bit of a handyman, Patrick. You do some of that kind of work.
I do. I'm very selective, though. I work for people I like.
Yeah.
I take on projects that I feel I can do with confidence and not risk. Even then, it's like it takes away from my own projects,
Sure.
which I have to do because I can't afford to pay a handyman to do them. We also heard from Carroll. Carroll with 2 L's, the male spelling like Carroll O'Connor.
Okay.
Okay.
Move on.
Good morning, Fine Homebuilding podcast crew. In episode number 230, I heard Patrick talking about the Festool Domino, and it made me think back to a few years ago when I was in the same position. I found the Triton dowelling jointer. It's like a domino but uses dowels. You can find it for $206 on Amazon. I enjoy the show. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I'm not all that thrilled about this. I mean, it's a cool idea. So for those of you listening, it looks a lot like a biscuit joiner, but instead of a blade, that sticks out from the transmission, it's a pair of spinning drill bits, and it drills a pair of holes that you then put dowels in to make connections between stiles and rails, for example.
Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of this for building rail and stile type assemblies because you have to be absolutely spot on with where you put those holes. Or you have to oversize all of your stock, knowing that you're going to have to trim it back down on the table saw and then, I don't know what, run it over a jointer. It's going to be...
I was watching someone use it on a YouTube video, too, and it's very slow. Like, you can't just, like, plunge the drill bits in there. It's, like, in and out, because it needs to clear the chips out of the hole, right?
Yeah.
I suppose that's what's going on, but I don't know. At $210, it's certainly appealing in that regard, but...
Yeah. I mean, what is it doing that a biscuit joint? I mean, obviously the joints will be a little bit stronger, I would think, than a biscuit joint for something that, I don't know, for some joints anyway, not for every joint.
Right.
But there's other alternatives, aren't there?
What?
I don't know. You can make your own. I saw...
Slip tendons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy, when we were talking about, shows that we watch and whatever on YouTube, one that I left out, there's a couple that I left out. One is this guy, Stumpy Nubs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He reminds me a very tiny little bit of Ben Strano. To see him, sometimes he has facial hair and he looks a little bit like Ben. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, that's
Woodworking's
the guy from Fine
web
Woodworking.
producer.
Yeah. So anyway, he made his own little sort of domino jig thing that runs with a little trim router.
So
and
he's
able to make
making a slot with a trim router?
Yeah, and then he's making his own sort of slip tendons from just scrap wood.
That sounds super easy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Carol said I should buy the Domino.
I think you should. So
I figure if I keep talking about it, you're going to send me one, maybe.
But if you can afford that, you can afford, one of those new 110-volt cabinet saws.
Oh, yeah. It's like the same price.
Yeah, I would get that before I'd get the Domino, I think, personally.
Well, then you have to make mortises, which is like another expensive undertaking.
Mm-hmm. You get a nice slot mortiser. You're going to invest in all kinds of shop tools.
I am not. That's what I like about the Domino is it fits in a box.
Well, that's the thing. It's great for on the job site, I think. And really it would be great in a shop, like in a fixed shop. But I mean, why not just get a slot mortiser and stuff if you're going to go through all that trouble?
I don't know. I think that's...
Then you can do real tenons.
Price is a wash there, too. I mean, that's a pretty expensive machine.
Yeah, but I mean, then you can actually... You're not just dealing with, having to use these slip tenons and everything.
Right. I guess, in my mind, I'm still a carpenter. I want to be able to take my stuff anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not going anywhere.
Hammer and chisel. Hammer and chisel.
That's the other way to make a mortise, right?
Yeah, it really doesn't take that long once you get the hang of it.
I think that's what Maria does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how everyone used to do it. Not me.
That's how we learned in school first.
So the other thing I was noticing about the Triton is, it's about 1.25 inches for the dowels on center, and I think that makes it unusable for a typical 1.75 inch face frame on a cabinet, for example, right? Mm-hmm. There's just not enough meat there to put the dowels in then, so.
Yeah. But I mean, a face frame, you can get away with biscuits there easily.
Or pocket screws.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also, I feel like I was taken to the woodshed by Mike Guertin here. He writes in, Dear Podfolk, I continue to enjoy listening to the podcast, especially when you get out ahead of your skis and discuss topics and offer opinions on systems you haven't worked with.
That's pretty much, I mean, that's like most things.
I know.
We're magazine editors. We're not out there every day doing all kinds of crazy installations.
Part of me laughs, and the other part wants to jump in and offer a little more insight and perspective. Well, we do appreciate it, Mike. I like permanent wood foundations and have built a number of them. My father, a non-builder, turned me on to them in the early 80s when he wanted to add a shop to the side of his house for working on his antique cars. The sloping grade around the house made it sense to build 2 of the walls below grade. Budget being a factor, he was on the lookout for any cost-saving measures. He came across the Permanent Wood Foundation Installation Guide published by the USDA Forest Products Lab, and I think they're still the ones who are doing the ongoing revisions to the original guide.
I watched some of those videos from
the 70s.
Produced, I don't know, I would say 80s or 90s. They definitely had that sort of
Short shorts.
quality. Yeah.
I don't know.
Really
the 70s,
interesting
the
haircuts.
70s and 80s are starting to look, or excuse me, the 80s and 90s are starting to look like the 70s. I mean, it seems like so long ago.
Oh, yeah.
Our magazine reflects that.
He showed the guy to the local building official, who shrugged his shoulders. He knew there was no sense trying to talk my father out of anything, and issued the permit. The shop's still standing after 35 years, and the treated lumber looks as good as new. In the late 80s, we were building 4+ unit apartment buildings and settled on permanent wood foundations for several reasons: cost savings, time savings. He says we built the panels off-site and were able to excavate, spread gravel, stone, and erect the panels, set joists, and backfill in a day and a half with a crew of 5 on a building 30 by 80. That's pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah.
And closing up the whole fast minimized the chance the kids in the neighborhood would turn the site into a play area. It helped with site conditions on the small infill city lots. There was no room for over-digging the foundation holes, as is usually needed when setting concrete forms. And seasonal conditions. We were building in winter, when placing concrete can be tricky with below freezing temperatures. Permanent wood foundations don't care what temperature it is. The city inspectors weren't familiar with the concept and asked us to get approval from the state building commissioner, even though they were permitted in the CABO code. The meeting was informative. Turns out the building commissioner had been on the committee that reviewed them for the code inclusion and was familiar with and a fan of the system. He explained all the pushback from committee members and how each point was put to rest, including the concern that children would be poisoned by the CCA lumber. An expert testified that a 3-year-old licking the PT lumber from the bottom to the average height of a 3-year-old would wear his or her tongue completely off before ever getting close to reaching measurable levels of arsenic or chromium in the body. Do you think that's true?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of fun
I don't
story.
have a 3-year-old.
Quite a visual, though.
I think it would stop licking after a point, right? Matt from Minnesota was planning to pour the slab first and then put the wood foundation on top. I think Matt Milham mentioned that doing so could be a problem since the slab wouldn't resist soil pressure on the foundation walls, which is correct. When we did this, we poured monolithic slab/footings before placing the wood foundation. Before placing the permanent wood foundation, we set a 2x6 inside the perimeter of the slab form. So they made this recess in the slab that then they would then put the wood foundation wall in the recess, and that resists the soil pressure. They were then anchored to the floor with expansion bolts. So if Matt from Minnesota does the same when he places his slab, he should be fine. Matt Milham also noted that the standard detail calls for 6 mil plastic on the outside as waterproofing. We use this detail and it works okay, but there are many more durable options today between membranes and coatings. Waterproofing and perimeter drainage is an issue with any foundation, whether it's concrete block, concrete, precast panels, or whatever. I'm drafting the foundation/footing details for my next house, and I'm thinking permanent wood foundation. It would be frost-protected shallow foundation using permanent wood footings and stem wall about 12 inches tall. Inside will be cross-layered subfloor sheathing on insulation board for a completely concrete-free foundation and slab. More of this.
That part is cool.
I'm really interested to see what that looks like.
With the wood foundation combined with this
Yeah, because
non-slab slab.
Yeah.
Are you guys
I
going
wonder
to cover
how far
that?
down he's going to go.
Seems like a good story idea.
Maybe. Yeah,
It seems a little experimental.
Yeah. Fringy.
Let's let him do 3 or 4. What do you think of this, Jeff?
I mean, you can't argue with Mike Guertin, really. I mean,
He's already thought like
All the
20
problems.
steps ahead of
Yeah.
wherever we are right now.
He's done it before, right? Or is he just...
He's
No,
done
no.
permanent wood foundations,
Yeah.
but not this particular
Right.
assembly with like a frost-protected shallow foundation, which normally are pretty shallow,
Right.
which is in the name.
Right. I don't know. I'm still a little skeptical of the permanent wood foundation, despite the blessing from Mike Guertin. Like, what if you want to build this in Florida or Georgia, where there are like Formosan termites? We haven't talked about that. We haven't talked about places where the soil is constantly wet.
Did they like arsenic? Termites?
I think they would eat that up and spit it out.
Yeah, I don't know.
They can't. I mean,
We need
the
an
CCA.
entomologist in here.
The CCA is better than other preservatives, but like I don't know. It's probably fine some places. Oh boy! So it's spring in Connecticut, I could say,
Essentially, right.
The first week of March.
It's been spring for a long time.
So do you have projects lined up for spring?
Yep. But I told you I'm tired of using my real mower, so I'm making a big purchase soon.
Really?
Yes, Rob inspired me. He's got a volt lithium battery mower, push mower, that I'm going to spend $300 on very shortly.
What do you use presently? What kind of reel mower? Is it old or is it new? Is it like from the 19th century though? Like
No, it's new.
Okay.
But it's, I don't have optimal conditions for that, and I've done a number on it, so it's very dull, and I looked around to find somebody to sharpen it, and it's just not an option. I'm not going to buy another one.
No.
So it's time. I'm excited about it.
So what is it? What is it?
Looks very ergonomic. What do you mean, what is it? It's a battery operated. There we go. It's a Ryobi. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Doesn't it look slick?
It has a bagger.
Yeah. I love the look of it. I can't wait to use it.
So I saw
It's
this.
going to save me a ton of time.
And I couldn't help but make another suggestion for your battery mower.
Well, Rob went on and on. He convinced me. What?
Can you show the next slide, Jeff? This is what you need.
That is not my style. I can't go from a real mower to that thing.
So this is a 42-inch Ryobi battery-powered zero-turn mower.
Okay.
It only costs $4,000, but it is sure cool. Look at this thing.
When did they come out with that? Because I saw they had
it's
another
last year.
Yeah, they had another one that looked like a go-kart almost.
It looks almost square in shape. It looks really compact.
It's I think just a little smaller than normal zero-turn.
Okay.
But is that awesome or
Yeah.
what? Don't you want that?
No.
So you can finance this.
There's no exercise there.
You can
I can
finance
finance
for $600 a month. I saw.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool that's an option.
What's the runtime on that?
It said it could mow up to 2.5 acres or 2.25 acres.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yeah,
need
that's
that.
right. You need
Yeah,
that.
no, because we were gonna get a zero turn, but I thought the only options were gas. If I could do electric.
Oh, you can go up to like 20K if you want a commercial one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to
that's
spend
what
that
you need.
much, but we were looking at.
So how much grass do you mow?
It's about 2 acres. Yeah.
How long does it take you?
A little less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
A little craftsman.
You like 20-inch,
What is
22?
it? 40. No, it's 42. I think.
Didn't
Oh, that's big. Oh, you have a rider. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's a riding lawnmower.
Dig it.
Heather did a number on it, right?
She's hit quite a few things with that. As have I.
You're gonna have to keep that around because you're not
Yeah.
gonna want her to drive this into a rock.
No. It doesn't mow evenly anymore, and I don't know how to get it to like level out. When
You have to terraform.
Yeah. One is all kind of wonky, so like the grass on the left is like 2 inches shorter than the grass on the right.
That would make me insane.
Yeah.
If you have actual grass.
Yeah.
I
Does
just
it make
mow
that cool
weeds.
stripe pattern that you see on golf courses and athletic fields?
You can, but
I just thought it might do that anyway because it wasn't cutting level.
no. Well, it seems like the one blade is cutting level and the other one is not. So it's like
You just need to remove that blade.
every other. Yeah. It's
You could
really,
call yourself a land
Oh, I've
artist.
changed them out. I've gone through so many blades on this machine. 'Cause they get. You'd be surprised how much damage a root can do to
Yeah.
a piece
Oh,
of
I
metal.
know.
Yeah.
I know. Sand is what destroys mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had super sandy. So I guess you're on the river too.
I'm on a sandbar.
I have a lot of sand. Yeah.
My house is built on 70 feet of sand and gravel. I know that when we drilled the well.
Do you have a push mower or you have a rider?
Oh, I have a Cub Cadet 46-inch hydrostatic drive, baby.
How did I not know that about you?
Cup holder, adjustable seat. Oh, man, it is sweet. It's like one of my favorite things ever.
It is a nice looking machine.
Oh, my God, it's beautiful.
So that's a big purchase.
Oh, it was a lot of money. What have you been doing?
The last 3 weekends, I guess, I've been working on cabinets in my breezeway because that is a disaster out there.
I love
not
this,
anymore.
dude, because
I know,
I
me
love how
too.
you used every available inch
Yeah.
for stuff.
Yeah, that wasn't the initial plan. Like I took about 10 minutes doing a SketchUp drawing that initially was just one bank of like shoe storage,
Right.
sort of like one, just one tier of shelves going up. And then my wife was like, no, I'd like to have more shoe storage. So it grew to 2. And initially
just
that
stick
was
it to
going to
the
stand
ceiling.
alone. And then eventually it was like, no, let's add a bench. So that went underneath that. And the base cabinet and other sort of like cabinet above that were initially in the plan, although they grew. Well, it just sized to the space and, kind of like putting a bunch of random things there and walking around and making sure that we weren't going to bump into it when we walked through the house. So everything was sized sort of
Based on what you got.
Based on sort of the space available and what we thought we could actually like maneuver around.
Which is ideal. That's exactly how you want to build build-ins, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, Matt has built, was it 4 cabinets?
Yeah.
With a little bench. And so the bottom cab's going to have drawers, I presume?
That one's going to have doors on it. And then there's not going to be a door, I don't think, on the bench at all.
Does the top open on the bench?
No.
So that's just dead.
That's just dead. So
Oh my
you'll be
God.
able
You need to
sit
put
on
some
it.
storage in there.
It is. I mean, you can dump stuff underneath of it.
Okay.
Exactly what's going to go in there, I don't know.
Camp fuel.
Yeah, water. Who knows? I mean, mostly because this is the kitchen is right on the other side of that wall,
Right.
so it's probably going to be overflow for vegetables and all kinds of other stuff.
Oh, that's
so,
right. Yeah.
And then the top gets doors too? Or those are
No,
shelves?
That's going to be open shelves.
Nice.
Yep. And then there's some leftover butternut from a video shoot is the top of that thing. So
What were you cutting that butternut for? I don't remember.
it was like how to put a straight edge on a board without
right.
a jointer. And since I've gotten a jointer, so that was great. So I was able to actually joint this.
Do it the right way.
Yeah, because it was so wonky. I mean, like it didn't have a straight edge or a flat face anywhere on this stuff. It was randomly thicknessed. It was looked like a log that had probably fallen. You know, it was a tree that had probably fallen in the woods and had sat there for a few years before they harvested it because lots of it was pretty rotten. Yeah, but.
It looks great.
I like the heft of the thickness of the wood a lot.
Yeah.
I think that makes it really sharp.
You weren't tempted to go live edge?
No,
That would've
thought
been
about
cool.
it. Although there is a one little piece of live edge that's sort of behind the top on the bench right now.
Oh, yeah,
That's
okay.
not like fastened in or anything. I don't know if I like it, but it's sitting there.
It looks cool.
Yeah, I like it.
So finishing, you're going to spray these?
Yeah, gonna spray them.
Are you going to spray them in place? Or these are all going to come outside or somewhere
No,
else?
it's probably going to get sprayed in place, with the exception maybe of that top cabinet, the one that's on top of the sort of like base
Yeah.
cabinet that's going to have the doors. That one I'll probably pull out and spray separately and then touch up. In
You
place.
have one of these Wagner
Oh
things.
yeah, it's like a real.
You love
I
that
mean,
thing.
I don't want to say
Flexio?
cheap, but yeah, it's inexpensive and definitely homeowner grade.
That's what you did your shed with, right?
Yeah, yep. And my deck. It's a great little HVLP sprayer. I think it was like $170.
That's
Gets
amazing.
the job done.
What's
I mean,
the finish quality?
I mean, good enough. A lot of it depends on the paint that you're using.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, if it's got good self-leveling properties, then it's probably a pretty nice finish. But the stuff we were using was like the lowest of the low quality. Well, not low quality, but it was like Ben Moore's cheapest paint, and it still came out fine. So
Are you
Oil or latex? I'm sorry.
latex.
go ahead.
Yeah, it was all latex.
That's harder to spray than oil. By
Really?
all
I would have.
accounts.
I would have thought the opposite.
Well, it dries so fast, and
It's thick.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
thick,
that's
and
true.
and I was doing it in the sun, so it really had no
Yeah.
time at all to sort
That's
of level
hard
out
conditions,
before it.
yeah.
I mean, you could spray again in like 3 minutes.
Well, I'm working on cabinets too, and I'm into the finishing stage, and we're using milk paint, which if milk paint didn't look the way milk paint does, no one would use milk paint because it is a colossal pain in the butt to work with.
How come?
Because for starters, you have to mix it. It's not like you open a can and start painting. You have to do this alchemy with mixing it with warm water, and then you have to let it sit. Otherwise, it's full of solids, and then you got to remix it, and you got to keep mixing it while you're. It's a suspension, not a solution.
Yeah.
But it looks fantastic.
So you
what
have
do
to develop a technique to get it to go on, right?
So putting it on is very easy and
Okay.
forgiving. And in fact, unlike most water-based paint, the more you work it, the better it looks.
Okay.
And that's very counterintuitive, but putting it on is not hard. Just mixing paint constantly is a total drag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 'cause
Like how constantly? Like every time you.
So I can make 6 ounces at a time. And if you make more than that, it starts, I don't know, it just can't mix it adequately, I've decided.
Okay.
That's enough to do what we're doing at a time.
and you can't let it sit around because it's milk
Yeah.
paint,
Right.
and it goes rancid.
It does. So I will not let mine last more than 8 or 12 hours. To pitch
Really?
it. Yeah, because
You
it's
just
not.
put it in the fridge.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
but I don't want to take a risk. I don't. I don't want to have problems with it. I want it to just work. So
Yeah.
I'd rather start fresh because I haven't heard this conclusively, but I think there's a lot of lime in it, which, as you know, is a chemical reaction that can be consumed, right? And then it doesn't work as well.
Yeah. Why not just use lime wash? You can tint that.
I've never tried that.
Because that lasts forever, as long as you keep it wet.
Yeah.
Once you mix it, you can just keep remixing it and just keep it wet, keep it capped, and that'll store forever.
It has the same look? Or similar
I
enough?
don't know if it's the same look. I've never worked with milk paint.
Don't.
It's probably similar.
I like the sound of it.
It looks, the colors are beautiful.
You did that
and-
on your wardrobe too, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
I like
these are
that
going to
look.
have the same yellow panels with white frame.
I think it's worth the effort.
Thank you. Keep telling
It
me
looks
that.
really nice.
Oh boy, we should get some questions here before we burn all our time here. This is from Troy from Portland, Oregon. FHB team, I know that the most of the discussion on the podcast is in the area of building science, but I'd like to hear a little discussion on the art/design side. There's a house just completed near me, and I'll share some photos. Here's the street side. So for those of you listening, it's an elevation with a large garage door and 3 tiny windows on the upper floor. It's let's say it's uninspired.
Is your interpretation of that the entire bottom floor is garage?
Yeah, and basement.
Okay, yeah.
And then he says it's on the corner, so the other street-facing side is here, which has
3 more windows.
and nothing below them.
Right.
And then he says, I guess this is the front. And so there's this little tiny porch roof and little tiny porch above an entry door with no windows on the side of it.
And little
then,
tiny posts.
And little tiny posts, and then up on the second floor are 2 tiny windows once again. And the fourth side,
Yeah.
which are big windows on the top floor, 1 small window on the basement level or first floor level.
So there is one window
in the
on
basement.
the first floor.
And yeah. Would you call it the first floor or the basement?
The first floor, well, I
Because
don't know
it's
if you could call it a
garage.
basement,
Lower
but
level.
garage,
Yeah.
yeah, lower level has 1 window and 1 door.
So the experience is that you walk into this place and you're essentially walking into, we don't know, maybe the garage or the basement, or maybe it's just one big room.
Yeah, we have no
So
idea.
you walk into a space filled with exhaust.
And no windows.
That's your entry.
and there's no windows
Yeah.
anywhere.
That sounds very unpleasant.
It sure looks unpleasant.
Yeah, but we don't know who lives there. I
Right.
mean, it might be a blind person. They, you know,
They still suck fumes.
yeah. But I mean, it could be somebody in witness protection. Maybe they don't want
Oh my
anybody seeing them. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why you might design a house like this. I'm not saying that they're necessarily good ones.
Sure.
Maybe the
Right.
house across the street's even worse, and
Right.
they don't want to see it. But,
I hate to be judgy about architectural generally.
Yeah.
This is an ugly house,
Yeah.
no doubt.
yeah.
He asked for our feedback on what makes a nice elevation and or an
just
ornamentation.
Nice, good design
What do you
in
think?
general.
Well, let's start with this.
Yeah,
what's wrong with this
here?
house?
It's unclear. That's what he nailed it. You know, it's like, I guess this is the front. What's happening here? I feel like the outside of a house should sort of reflect what the functionality of the spaces on the inside.
I think that's a good
I
point.
mean, clearly garage,
Right.
right? We got that part.
Yeah.
But like, where's the entry? And I had to kind of think about what that experience was going to be like. And I don't know, the window arrangements are very strange. That's really important.
So, some people arrange their windows to work for the inside of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Some people arrange their windows so the outside looks appropriate. Very few people do both.
Right.
This clearly was made to reflect what's needed on the inside, not the outside.
Right.
It's a
We
big
hope.
middle finger to the street, right?
Right. I mean, I wasn't even sure that this was really a house. I'm not sure that
And
this
maybe
isn't
it's
just
not.
It
like
could be a commercial
garage
space, yeah.
with an office space or something
Right.
upstairs. I have no idea.
It does seem like a shop,
Yeah.
like
That's true. I didn't think of that.
So,
So function
in that case,
matters,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, are you going to spend a lot? Are you going to go above code minimum for fenestration and spend all this money on windows if you're just using it as a, I don't know, call center for for your mineral supplements company?
yes,
Yeah.
your robo-call center.
Exactly.
But, even so, in terms of good design, you want to make clear the entry
Yep.
and how you move around the site.
Yep.
And that's confusing here. So I think those are key, even in a building like that, don't you think?
This got me thinking about what it is that I like about a home's exterior. And one of the things I decided I really like are ornamentations that do things.
Yeah.
So pediments were to shed water,
Yep.
right? It was like there was a genuine utility with these decorative pediments in older buildings. I love that. I love gables that have siding that's different than the main field. I like the use of water tables for the same reason that it kicks the water away from the foundation, but yet it adds this interest to the building that has a purpose.
Yeah, I like that too. Like a scupper or something like that.
like-
Some detail that
Hoo-haws that are stuck on a house for just the sake of bling, I have no use for.
awnings are a good example of that too.
Because they shade and deflect rain.
And you
right?
can add brackets, and that's a decorative element.
Shutters
that's-
similarly, but if a house has shutters, they should work and they
love
should
when
match
when-
the size of the window.
Yeah,
Right.
when the shutter, they have these tiny little shutters next to this gigantic bay window
Right.
or something like that. That just always
It's
makes me
always
laugh.
the feature window with a big picture sash in the center, flanked by casements or double hungs, and then they have like 12-inch shutters on the side.
Right.
Yeah, love
Yeah,
that.
it's like a T-Rex. It's like, what's it going to do with those little things?
I think uncomplicated roof lines are really important. I can't stand when things are just really complex, and that creates a lot of problems in and
Amen.
of itself in terms of
Agreed.
the building, the construction.
I think that's a new problem, right? Like I think buildings used to have pretty simple roofs outside of like Gothic cathedrals.
Yeah, well, until McMansions came along.
Yeah,
right?
and then they were like, "Well, we got to make this fancy."
In fact, one way to learn about great design for our listener here is to look at Kate Wagner's McMansion Hell.
Oh, that's so fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
It's
Have
a-
you seen that?
I have,
Yeah.
yeah. But, I mean, roofs were definitely more complicated back in the Victorian era
Sure.
too. I mean, you had all these Queen Anne's with
Yep.
like these
Towers or-
turrets. Yeah, I mean, the house I grew up in had, I think 6, it was like a double cross gable. So
Wow.
it had basically 6 gable ends, I think.
I can't even visualize that.
Yeah, it's insane.
So that's like a hyper style, but I think
Actually, maybe it was 5. I think the back side was 1, the front side was 2, and then a gable sticking out either end. It was insane. And
So
it was
once
1812 pitch.
Interestingly, the parallel between that house and the modern McMansion were similar. That you had this nouveau riche,
Yep.
and they wanted fancy houses to impress their neighbors, right?
right.
Yeah, and this was a farm
Right.
that this house was originally part of.
I think there's a move towards more simpler forms, and I would argue that is the starting point for good design.
Yeah.
Simple forms in relation to one another, clear primary volume versus secondary and any other add-ons, right? And then you build it from there. I actually found a fantastic article. It's from 2008, but it's still super prevalent, applicable. It's called How Great Houses Take Shape, and it's one of our articles, Jeremy Eck. It's very good. He lists 6 principles and how to build a house, and there's drawings throughout whereby you do the wrong, yes and no. You do this, don't do this, and he explains why. I love that kind of thing.
Me too.
So I'll
And
put
he
a
gives you
post.
the why, don't do this, I hope.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
It's informative.
You know what
I'll
else I
share
like?
that.
Chimney pots.
I do too. I saw some disguised in they were disguising the mechanical systems with copper chimney pots.
Cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah. So that canal journeys show I watch on Amazon, like a lot of English housing has, it's row houses. They're all masonry, and they all have matching chimney pots, and it just looks so cool.
Matching patterns, those are important.
Yeah. This is from Mike in Virginia. Hello, FHB. We live in Central Virginia, and I'm considering solar panels. We have a 750 square foot ranch with 3 tab asphalt shingles. My concern is, how do you replace the roof shingles with solar panels installed? I assume you must remove all the panels. Is the cost benefit analysis worth installing? Well, this is a very easy question. Yes.
Well, it's an easy question, and it's not. Doing the cost-benefit analysis is
that's
going to be
harder,
real
yeah.
hard because we don't know your solar orientation. We don't know there's a lot of stuff that goes into deciding whether
So
or not it's worth it.
let's for starters assume that the house makes sense to put solar panels on the roof.
Yeah, so the house makes sense. Is there net metering?
Another good point,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Do you have a garage?
because
Yeah.
you
Is
want
there
to have
another,
a
is there another structure that you could put these panels on that you don't have to worry about changing the shingles every
Or ground mount them.
whatever? Yeah.
ground mounting. Sure, that's more money.
Right. I didn't know that.
So most solar companies like do a roof assessment as part of their contract, right? And if they decide you probably have less than 10 years of life in your asphalt shingles, they tell you to change the roof before you put on the PV. And I think
makes
that's
sense.
a great
Yeah.
suggestion, right? Why would
Yeah.
you go to all the expense and put all this stuff up there and then have to take it down a few years later to redo the roof? And solar companies do take down panels so you can re-roof, but ideally, you're in the house long enough that you start with a new roof, you start with new panels, you don't touch the whole thing forever.
Yeah.
Ideally.
When is somebody going to design a mounting system that can stay on the roof, and that you can easily shingle around?
So you need like
That sounds like it would-
onboard jack system like the Mach 5 that would like
Yeah. Something that will allow you to sort of leave the panels in place.
They'd be all.
Telescoping. I don't know how you would
Can't
do
picture
it.
that.
Neither can I. That's
Yeah.
why probably nobody's done it yet.
Well, like if you could hinge them like a
Yeah.
car hood maybe and then work under them and then put them back down and then hinge the next row. Oh my God, I might just gave away my $1 billion idea.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Hinge
not?
at one end, clip at the other.
And I mean, like mechanically, that's not really hard to do.
No. All right, we're quitting.
You in on this, Caper?
Well, I'm trying to picture if it's hinged and you pick it up, where does it rest while you're doing your work?
So the top is hinged. It has a prop rod, like a car hood.
A prop rod. Okay, got it.
No, hydraulics.
Or pneumatics.
Yeah, a little pneumatic arm.
Everything is better that makes that noise. So get a new roof, Mike. My guess is if you have 3-tab shingles, they're probably old.
Yeah. It seems like they're always old.
I've never seen 3-tab shingles on a new roof.
They exist. I know you can buy them, but I haven't seen anybody putting them on.
Because installers don't want to deal with them. It's harder than architectural shingles. And my guess is the labor is a wash when you consider the fact the additional layout and waste when you use a 3-tab.
That's what's on my house. What do you guys have?
Architectural.
You do?
I have
That's what I'll
architectural.
get when I do my roof for sure.
I like 3-tab shingles. I think they look great, especially when they're like a uniform solid color. It's old school, man. This is from Ken from, do you guys know how to say this? Ringe?
Yes, in Ringe.
Ringe, New Hampshire?
You lived in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that
you know
is
where this
Ringe.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, generally speaking. Yeah.
He says, hi, guys and gal. Love the podcast. I'm a religious listener, and I use both FHB and GBA websites every week. I have a cabin in the woods that has internet, and I want to install a thermostat that allows for Wi-Fi so I can turn up the heat before I arrive. I do not need a learning thermostat and very much despise them. Who are they to say that they can learn my schedule? When I'm at the cabin, I have no schedule. In fact, that's the purpose of the cabin in the first place. I love this guy.
Yeah.
Are there any simple Wi-Fi thermostats that did not have schedules, 7-day or whatever, and learning modes? Thanks. So you, once again, were like surreptitiously talking to this gentleman outside the podcast.
Yeah, just because this email came in and I was reading it on the couch and I read it to my wife and she was like, oh, we just got an email from our local power company, Central Hudson, trying to sell us a thermostat that basically fit the bill for what Ken was asking for. And
What are the chances of that?
That's pretty cool.
I don't need it, but I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's it. And it's
So
like
what
this-
is it?
It's I'm not going to read the whole model number because
Oh, you
it's
have to.
insanely long.
It's like Chinese, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a Honeywell Wi-Fi programmable thermostat. And as far as I can tell, it's a dumb thermostat that is Wi-Fi connected, so you can control your heating plant from anywhere in the world, but it's not going to try to learn what you're up to and control
Guess.
your house for you.
That's cool.
I
I can appreciate where he's coming from.
any technology that tries to guess what I want is never right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's spite on my part, I hate it.
It's like getting coupons for products you don't use.
Right. Do any of
My
you-
guess is this does have a 7-day programmable feature, but you don't have to
You
use
don't
that,
have
right?
to. Right. It's not the default.
Does anybody have Alexa or any of those
No.
home
I don't.
assistants?
Do you,
I
Jeff,
do, yeah.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Does it run your heating or anything?
No,
Heating,
it does
cooling?
not.
What do you use?
I do have programmable thermostats, though.
Yeah.
But can you call your thermostat and tell
I
it to do
cannot,
something?
no.
Okay. What does it answer when it picks up? Hello, your heating system.
How may I direct your heat?
Do you think this fits the bill?
I think it does. I haven't used it, but I mean, looking at the specs, it seemed like the right
I thought
thing.
so too. So Ken, you need to buy this. And then you need to tell us how it works, and then we can tell other folks if it does fit the bill. I would very much value a review for the magazine, too, because I don't think this is an exceptional request. Is a thermostat that does sophisticated things that doesn't try and guess what you want it to do.
Yeah, all this, I don't know. I'm not into the whole home assistant thing or any of this machine learning type stuff. I don't want it to control anything.
I know. I'm with you.
I'm fine.
Strange.
I can turn on a light switch with my finger. As long as I have fingers, I can do that.
Exactly.
I love when you and this is what happens at my house, is I'll spend 20 minutes looking for the remote control when I could have just turned off the television, right?
I love that.
But they don't have the dials like they used to. There's too many channels. Like back in the day, you used to have to stand up and just go
that.
tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
Yeah, I was the remote control in my household. For the console television with a very attractive walnut cabinet.
Yeah.
We had like turned legs on it and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. TVs
So you
used
didn't
to be
mind
like
going
furniture.
up to the TV.
It was ugly. It wasn't a good look.
Oh,
All right. Oh, we did that one. Okay, so this is from Will in New Jersey. Hello, FHB podcast crew. Long time, first time. While I love the building science / air sealing conversation and discussion, I wanted to plumb the depths of your mind on a subject that keeps me up many nights and offer a respite from the somewhat dry topic of air sealing. I'm an avid DIYer and currently helping my cousin with some renovations on his house. Anytime that I'm unloading and unloading my car with tools, I get to thinking about ways to optimize my tool storage and transportation and my workspace when I'm on site. For tool storage and transportation, I use DeWalt's Tough Stack, which I find makes the load-unload very efficient since they stack and roll. I started building my collection before the Milwaukee Pack Out option and before DeWalt revamped the T-Stack, so it was less expensive alternative to Sustainers, which are Festool's boxes. On site, my current quandary is setting up an efficient workspace that is also easy to break down and load into a car. I currently use a variety of sawhorses that my pair of stablemates, which are great because they're big and sturdy, but annoying because they're big and sturdy and don't function well in tight spaces. I also have various shop-made workstations that work well but are time-consuming to set up and heavy and bulky to transport. Mike Main seems to have an excellent site shop set up, as seen in the Project House series of site-built cabinets with job site tools, but I'm curious what other setups you've seen and use. What are some innovative site shop setups, means, and methods you've seen? I'm an architect by day, and I'm amazed how many crews I see with inadequate work-holding solutions, i.e., $1 million cabinets precariously balanced on rickety sawhorses while being scribed to fit, or miter saws and table saws being used on the ground. I love the podcast and look forward to listening to it on the days when I'm chained to my desk drawing, and look forward to your discussion on this topic. By the way, when y'all going to do a meetup in NYC? Well, so that's out there for y'all if you're in the New York City area. This is from William Wallace, and I don't ordinarily use last names in the podcast to protect people's privacy, but he says, yes, that's actually my name, and no, I don't typically wear blue face paint, only when freedom is under attack. So those of you in the New York area, I would love to meet up with y'all somewhere in the area, and that would be fun, right?
was your last meetup a success? I meant to ask you about that.
We had successful people wanting interest. Mm-hmm. We had successful interest, but not actually success in doing the event. Mm-hmm. But we're going to change that next time. It was tough to get all of us in the same place. Sure. And by coincidence, like all 6 sides of Pittsburgh were represented. And if you lived in Pittsburgh, you'd understand that. But
yeah, Pittsburgh is a cube.
So,
yeah, what solutions? I don't know. I mean, my solutions are probably not very good because I mean, I work. It sounds like he's working out of his car, and right. Similarly. I mean, until relatively recently, that's what I was always doing, like transporting everything in the back of my Pontiac Vibe. Or in the back of a Subaru.
Right.
And, yeah, I mean, so I would have my saws, and just some stands and like some rolling stands to...
For outfeed?
For outfeed for the job site table saw, and also to support long lengths of siding and stuff like that. Because
for the miter saw.
For the miter saw, yeah. And often I would just use the same stands and just move them back and forth. That's one thing I would change. I would get more stands, more roller stands. But, I mean... They work and they fit in a car. I've seen some really fantastic stands that will hold really long lengths for the miter saw. So when you're working with fiber cement or anything else that's floppy, they provide good support, and they're really light. They're easy to move around, but they won't fit in a car. You need
Rob
a roof
is a
rack.
big fan of metal. Well, of course he is.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, yeah.
The problem with some
His
stands,
The Smith.
His seem like
Yeah.
a pain in the butt. But
like I've got my miter saw now on a stand. It's like permanently connected to it, and the thing is nice. It's a rolling stand, but I can't fit it in the back of my Subaru. It's too tall.
I thought you had a truck.
Yeah, I can fit it in the truck
Oh.
now, but I can't fit it in the back of my car anymore. Now that it's on the stand, so
It's a conundrum, and I've had to deal with a number of different work vehicles and scenarios in my career, and none of them are ideal. But what I saw was ideal was on a Facebook page I follow, Building Knowledge, was Brian Campbell's, who's a Minneapolis carpenter, and he has a Dodge Ram ProMaster, and he made these rolling carts for his. He has some sustainers and some Milwaukee Pack Out boxes, and he made plywood boxes with adjustable shelves so he could load whatever arrangement of boxes into there that he needed for a particular day or project. And what's really cool is he put corresponding French cleats on the walls of his van and on the walls of these rolling stands so he can hang them on the rail in his van and they don't roll around.
Oh,
and it looks
that's
like he
slick.
has the heights of some of those cabinets so that they match up with the top of
With
the
his
table on
miter
miter
saw,
saw, so he
yes.
can use them as
Exactly.
extension tables.
One cabinet is lower than the other two, so the other two become the supports for his miter saw.
That's really
It's really smart.
smart. Yeah,
Once again, though, this is not going to work for someone who's traveling in a car.
right. Yeah.
So, what the right solution is for someone in a car, maybe one of our other listeners can weigh in on that. I know a lot of carpenters use Subaru wagons in Vermont just because, honestly, you needed it to get around. A work van is not going to work
yeah.
in Vermont in the wintertime.
Yeah. I have a lot of duffel bags that everything gets jammed in. Nothing is in its original case, with the exception of the track saw. Is the only thing that travels around in something other than a duffel bag, I think.
So recently, Milwaukee sent me the Pack Out when it was first introduced, as tool manufacturers often send me stuff to try out. And they hope that I'll cover it in the magazine or we'll shoot videos using it. And I loved it so much, I bought a second set with my own money. So, if that's not testament to the utility of it, I would be hard-pressed to find something that was a better endorsement. What I love about them is they all stack together. What I hate about it is they all stack together. So you have to go to take all the stuff off to reach the things in the lower cases. And I think that's a complaint that Brian has addressed with his with the sustainers and the Pack Out on their own shelves.
Yeah.
Because you can pull out one box without having to move all the others.
Do you have anything like that, Matt?
No. I've seen them. They're really expensive.
Does it appeal
and
to you?
No, not at all.
For that reason?
What don't you like about that?
Well, unless I had everything labeled on the outside, and I mean, they look all nice and neat, but then I'd have Sharpie scrawled on the side for whatever's in there now, and then I'm going to change that, and, so it's like covered in tape, and it's going to look like ass after no time.
I have a lot of tools, right? And
Yeah.
I found what I did was I put C for circular saw, J for jigsaw, and I figured I could always cross it out or get some alcohol and you can oftentimes remove Sharpie. But I worried about that too. I was like, what if I change this? Then I'm still going to be going to the same case every time, right? Because it's going to be labeled incorrectly.
Yeah. I had some big sort of footlocker type things that I would dump everything in, and then because that was relatively easy to get in the back of the Subaru
Right.
back in the day, and yeah, it worked fine. Then I could just open it up and literally everything's right there. But
I could say for my own sanity, I've always preferred hand tools to be carried in some kind of open carrier. Like for decades, I used a Bucket Boss, the one with as many pockets. It was like, 40 pockets or whatever, because I want to know if something's missing. There's nothing that kills your productivity when you show up somewhere and you're missing an important tool. And if you have, dedicated pockets for things, when something's gone.
yeah. And that's one thing with the duffel bags that I do have are surrounded by pockets. And so there's batteries and pencils and all kinds of, speed squares or whatever and all these things. So I know where stuff is, and I can just look and be like, yeah, it's there or it's not.
It was fun having Rob build my woodshed to see how he goes about things.
Is he organized?
I don't want to make him look bad, but at the end of the day, we were both just sort of chucking everything back into his element, like willy-nilly. It just seemed like a chaotic mess. But
So, I mean, if you're a professional carpenter, inevitably, like, it's punch list time. The client's taking over the house. Yeah, all that
You
stuff
gotta get
goes
out,
into your
yeah.
truck. But shortly thereafter, you got to organize that stuff, or you're
that's
just
what
going
he
to be
said. He gets
fighting
all
yourself.
organized before the next job.
Yeah. And it's a constant struggle. And I would bet that anyone who thinks they got the perfect solution has been several incarnations till they got there. Do you know of a carpenter who does some YouTube videos that makes like these workstations with plywood and they have like tons of holes cut in them? I can't remember the guy's name.
What are the holes for?
To make it lighter.
No.
Oh, God, do you know who I'm talking about, Jeff?
No.
So I'm sorry to bring this up for those of you listening, but I'll try and remember this guy's name on the podcast page and put up a link to some of his videos. But he sells plans to these things, and by all accounts, they're pretty smart, and they're not fancy but functional. I wish I could remember that guy's name. That's bad.
Like, how many holes are we talking about?
Just like turns it into Swiss cheese, so
Yeah.
it's real light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the stuff's all glued together with Baltic Guards plywood, so it's super strong, but it's also lightweight.
Yeah.
And he uses like torsion boxes to, boost the rigidity of these relatively lightweight components.
Yeah.
And the holes allow you to like clamp stuff, for
Right.
edge routing and that kind of thing.
Probably easier to carry too, right?
Yeah, a lot of little finger holes.
Exactly.
Also a lot
Yeah.
of places for
I tried picking up a
sawdust
piece
to
of
gather.
plywood. It is very heavy and awkward.
Oh yeah.
If you don't have a long arm span.
Yeah.
Mike Pekovich observed one time that like building materials are as big as a person can carry.
Yeah,
And
man can carry.
And I've never thought about that, but he's totally right. Like
Yeah.
a bag of concrete is 80 pounds because like that's a reasonable weight for someone to carry. A sheet of plywood is 4x8 because that's about the limits of someone can carry.
It's all based on human
Yeah.
proportions.
A bundle of shingles is what, 75 or 80 pounds, 68 pounds, because that's what you can carry on your shoulder up a ladder sometimes.
Some people. Right.
Back in the day.
This is good. So once again, this was shared by someone on the Building Knowledge page on Facebook. Do you guys see this? I saved this till the end.
Oh, I don't know.
Do you got that picture, Jeff? So this was an ad at the International Builder Show for a DuPont Tyvek. And this shows a gentleman who's fastening Tyvek to the building. What's the problem, Matt?
The stapler's backwards?
Staple is totally backwards.
I hadn't seen that picture. That's obvious right away. That's
So
hilarious.
he has a hammer tacker, the Arrow variety that you all have. It's the one with the yellow handle. Also the one with the carrier that falls out at the most inopportune times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this gentleman has developed a new way to use it.
Maybe he's just beating a staple in and we don't realize.
That's what one of the commenters on the
Yeah.
Facebook page said.
because that's a common thing to have to do
It
with
is.
those.
You have to beat them in the rest of the way.
Yep.
But what else someone else pointed out, and I didn't even think about it, you're not supposed to put Tyvek on with staples. The instructions call for cap staples or
yeah.
cap nails.
Yeah.
So this is a boner in two regards, right?
Nice job, Tyvek.
So I went looking for this ad elsewhere, and I couldn't find it.
Do you think
so
it's a mock-up? Maybe somebody mocked it
Maybe
up.
somebody else did it just
Yeah,
to make
just
Tyvek
to be
look
silly,
bad. That was
yeah.
Hubert came up with that.
Okay.
So that's good. It's pretty obvious when building products and tool manufacturers are faking it, right? Like, and people who use this stuff know right away.
Yeah. Great one.
Isn't that great?
You like that.
We have anything else, Jeff?
I don't think so.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I have to get to my script to learn what I'm supposed to say here. Thanks to Kylie, Matt, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. My very puppy dog eyes sad appeal last time seemed to have worked.
Okay.
I'm going to try that again. Please comment. Thanks, everyone, for listening.